Okay, so just so everyone knows, if anything goes wrong during this technically, we will continue everything administratively to August 4th, 2020 for everything that's on this agenda. All right, there was no one for public speak. We have no minutes and no ANRs, correct, Jeff?
Correct.
So the first item is a public hearing for Forefront LLC seeking a special permit for a large-scale solar facility. Mr. Levesque, are you here to speak to that? Or somebody?
It's actually
yeah, it's me. How is everyone? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Who's the host? Could you allow me to share my screen, please?
Yep, I'm going to make you a co-host now.
Okay. Can you all see?
Yep.
Great. Well, I appreciate everyone's time tonight. It's nice to see you all, albeit digitally, since the last time we talked about this project. So I'll get started here. So we're here for a 1.25 megawatt solar array that's proposed along Plain Street in the city of Easthampton. Just a little bit about Forefront Power. We are a renewable energy provider. We have both, we develop both storage and solar projects around the country, and have over 15 years of experience on 900 megawatts, which is almost a gigawatt of capacity, over 1,000 projects with clients in the public and private sector. This particular application is a community solar project where the electricity will be sold to residents within the vicinity of the project itself. The Forefront Power is backed by Mitsui, which is a global energy leader. They're based in Japan, and we've had this relationship with them for since our founding back in 2017. And just a little bit of background on Mitsui: they've got 37 gigawatts of energy capacity, $3.7 billion of profit last year. They own $108 billion in assets, 44,000 global employees, and currently have $8.7 billion in cash on hand, so they're well funded for their endeavors. So I wanted that's a little bit about Forefront. I wanted to just first kind of recap, because as I had mentioned previously, we had gone through and met with you all and got the special use permit and site plan review back in 2017. So I figured that would be a good place to start, just sort of recapping. So with the planning board, like I said, the use permit, special use permit and site plan were approved in August of 2017. The planning board determined that it met all of the requirements of your zoning ordinance. And there were several conditions placed upon the project, most notably the replacement of any disturbed removed pavement at 115 Plain Street, permanent ground cover and seeding requirements, decommissioning and system removal, and burying the electric lines from the transformer to the road. In addition to the planning board approval, we also got approval from the Conservation Commission. They issued a negative deck under their WPA form back in November of 2018. The project itself was designed to avoid all the wetland and wetland buffers, and the decision is valid until next November of 2021. So there's no immediate action on our end there. Recapping the site plan. And I know it's going to be a little bit hard to see presumably it's a little bit hard to see the sort of the details here. So if you'd let me run through kind of the presentation at the end, if there are any questions, we can dig into. I have the PDF of the site plan, so we can zoom in and get some more detail there, if that's acceptable.
Yeah, Ed, that sounds good. Can you also make sure to try to describe stuff too? We have a lot of people that are on the phone maybe that can't see the screen, so to the extent you can sort of describe what you're showing to those people, that'd be helpful too.
Sure. Yes. So right now we're looking at the site plan that was approved in 2017. You'll see that the project itself has access off of Plain Street down coming south to north and it extends on a old farm road easement that's going to be used for this site. Extends all the way from Plain Street to the back of the parcel, and then makes a turn to the east, and then provides access to this second subarray over on the east. The project site itself is one array, but it's two subarrays. It's bifurcated down the center by a transmission line that runs kind of north by northeast, and through the middle of the site. Each of the subarrays is connected via trenching, and you can see there's trenching that runs down the center of each of the smaller subarrays, and then it trenches across to a transformer pad with transformer and electrical equipment for each subarray. After the transformer, the electricity goes to the transformer. It's then routed down through the access road. And we originally had proposed, you can see here, I guess if you have your computer, you can see, but we had poles along the access road in order to interconnect. You'll see once we show you the updated plans, that's been resolved per the conditions. The wetland that we discussed in the site is over here on the far western side. You'll see that, as I said, and as supported by the Concom decision, we avoid the wetland and all the buffers relevant there. And I think and then as far as grading, the site itself is, and I have some additional color on that in the updated plans, but I think that's good right now as a baseline for the 2017 plan. Moving on, the update. So here's the updated plan here, and again, I'll go into greater detail in the next slide, but just sort of some high level metrics here. It's a 1.25 megawatt DC project, slightly under 1 megawatt AC. The subject parcel, like I said, is located on Plain Street. The site access also is along that existing farm road. As I've discussed with Jeff, and I'm sure we'll get into this possibly later on, it provides an opportunity for co-use to connect to a broader citywide trail system. The actual project site itself, the parcel, is 15.5 acres, and we're only taking up about 5.7 of that. The zoning is rural residential B, R40. Eversource is our utility. As I said previously, the point of common coupling, that's POCC, is along Plain Street. There's existing three-phase power there. And you'll notice in this just sort of, it's very faint, but there's a red outline bubble that shows that we've removed those poles, and all now the power lines have been buried, again, per the condition. And the frontage issue, I know that was brought up about the fact that there's not enough frontage. We provided some legal counsel and some case law supporting why we feel the way that we do, and that we do meet those requirements, or justify the waiving of them. So here, like I said, is a larger site plan that's we see a little bit more detail. As I mentioned, here's the area that's now trenched along. So for the people on the phone, the trenching will now go from the western subarray, the transformer and electrical equipment there, and it will run along the access road all the way to the northeast corner of the site, and then again, following the access road, run from the northeast to the southeast corner of the site, which is the access point of Plain Street. Just some high-level sediment and erosion control during construction. I figured it'd be good to go over this. As you can see, we've got silt fencing proposed for around the entire perimeter within the disturbed area, in between the disturbed area disturbance and the fence line of each of the subarrays. and then some temporary construction entrance down here along Plain Street, and then the laydown area itself will be right here, kind of for the folks on the phone, over directly adjacent to the eastern subarray up near the northeast corner of the site, kind of where the access road makes a left turn. The stormwater management plan. So just sort of high-level stormwater management. You'll see here, we've kind of designed the site to continue to flow in the northeast towards the sheet flow to the northeast, to funnel it in there. And then we've proposed gravel diaphragms along the northern border of the site. So between the access road and the northern site border, all the way from about where the trenching starts on in the west, all the way to the northeast corner, following the access road, and then from the northeast corner all the way down along the access road to Plain Street, to provide sufficient stormwater management. And then just some details about the gravel diaphragm apparatus is down here in the corner. The sheet flow kind of hits it, and then it allows for some infiltration and just to sort of slow down the sheet flow so as not to overwhelm the vegetative buffer that's on the other side of it. And so that was the sort of the high level presentation of what I wanted to cover today. I'm sure there are some questions for me and for the site plans. So I'll be quiet now, and if we need to dig in, like I said, I have the PDF of the site plans, and we can drill into some details.
Planning board members have any questions to start?
May I?
Sure.
So there's two things. One, I think, was the letter from, I believe it was Piscomic, that I'd like to kind of discuss, but I'm sure you'll get to that, Jesse, so I'll hold on that. The other thing is about, if I understand correctly, this came before us, as my memory serves, and as you pointed out, 2017. Why did it not happen then?
Sure. So after we had received all the approvals from you guys and we got the interconnection agreement, we submitted the project to the SMART program, which is the statewide incentive program. And to be honest, we got the project received a lower incentive block than we originally anticipated. And so we've had to do, so our original investor kind of dropped, and we've had to look and find a new partner, which we've done. And so now we're moving back and trying to get everything reapproved in order to move forward with the project.
I don't have the old plans in front of me. Can you tell me what the substantive differences are between the two?
Yeah, so it's really the only difference is we buried the lines per the condition. So really the only changes to the plans have been, and let me pull it up, I guess, sorry. If you just give me a moment. You'll see this revision bubble right here.
Yep.
This is this removing all of the overhead poles along this stretch was the only change to the plans. Everything else is as approved from 2017.
Could I ask a quick follow-up related for Ed? So can you pan that map all the way towards the resource area? And because I apologize, because the Conservation Commission, I should say the conservation agent, did look at this and did acknowledge that the Concom did issue the negative declaration in 2018. Their only comment was to just get confirmation that there's no changes to the site plan in the vicinity of the resource area.
Yeah.
But it looks like your call out shows it stops in the middle of the site there. So you can confirm verbally that nothing got buried or changed over in this area of the wetland.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. We didn't make any changes to the plans that weren't required by you folks.
Okay, that's helpful. Continue on, Mr. Zarvis. Thank you.
I'd ask Jess maybe to read the letter.
Yeah, so
I have a couple questions.
Yeah,
I don't know
let's do the other stuff first, because they're all, I don't know if someone from Piscomic is actually here too. Maybe we have someone that can talk to it. But if there's other technical questions, Chris, you want to jump in?
I had just two minor questions, and this is for clarification for me because I do remember this project, but I don't know if I'm remembering it incorrectly. Wasn't there discussion about at the time planting a row of trees along the Crestview parcels and the Holly Circle right along that property line to create a visual barrier to this?
There is. I
Am
can
I thinking-
flip over to the landscaping plan real quick.
Okay.
I can't remember if and this is my own. It's been a little while. If you can
Right.
see it, we added in. I think this was approved. I know there was a couple different meetings. I think this made it into the last. It would be August. It would have been the August 2017 meeting. But yeah, we added in, like you guys had suggested, vegetation along the back property line there.
Okay, so that's still
Obviously-
part of the project.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ed, can you explain to people what the plantings are that are going in on that line?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a mix of evergreens, shrubs, and deciduous, and it'll be done in a way that we use native vegetation and also, break it up so it's not a bunch of deciduous trees and then a bunch of evergreens, keeping everything kind of interspersed and mixed to provide as full a coverage as we can year round, but also making it look, as natural as it can as well. And just sort of further touching on the visual screening along the southern portion of the site, you'll see it's obviously it's more apparent when you're there, but in the topography, there's kind of a natural berm that runs along, and it's also pretty heavily treed and wooded right now. So there's sufficient screening from Plain Street looking back into the site itself.
Right.
Yeah, I remember that topography was helpful for those neighbors. What about the height of those trees on the other buffer when they get put in? Is that on here?
It is. Yeah, so between 8 to 10 feet to get very specific, we're the balsam firs, there'll be 36 of them between 8 and 10 feet. One black gum with a 2.5 inch caliper. Pines, 24 pines, evergreens at 8 to 10 feet. So yeah, all relatively, I wouldn't say they were the most like adult mature trees, but not saplings.
But that's the height. That's the height at planting, right, Ed? So those are going to go in as pretty substantial screens to begin with. That's
correct. We're going to put 36 10-foot balsam firs and 24 pitch pines to also 10 feet with then some shrubs as well. So then you have that kind of the higher mix, and then you make sure with the shrubs you cover the lower areas where below the branches of the evergreens.
And what about tree removal, Ed, looking on the other side? I know there's minimal tree removal, but do you have any details about what is going to actually be taken down?
Yeah, so what I think that we decided on last time is not necessarily a specific, okay, we're going to remove tree X, Y, and Z, but I think our concern, it wasn't necessarily, we don't have to remove really any trees for to actually install it. It's more for shading. And so there may be some tree trimming at the top of the trees and along the backside here, because again, it does sit on a berm and it does provide pretty sufficient coverage. But there would be a way, and we would go about it where we'd start clearing for shading kind of from the back, all the pruning. And when I say clearing, I mean trimming and pruning and not, physical tree removal to the extent we can. There could be, a tree or something out there right now that may need to be removed, but I don't think so. Just based on my last recollection of the site.
Yeah, I've been out there pretty recently. I don't remember any actual trees really being in that area, although there is a lot of scrubs and shrubs and things. But okay, that's helpful.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I had one more question. I seem to recall there was a discussion about a culvert that maybe needed to be replaced to put in this access road, and then maybe it was resolved at a later date that it was not a culvert that would be needed to be replaced for the roadway, but it was somewhere else. I can't remember what that is. I don't know. Was there any change to, how do I ask the question? Is there a culvert, I guess, as part of this that needs to be replaced for the access road or not, I guess? And if there is that still the same plan to replace it and upgrade it?
So I would imagine that the culvert the culvert in question would probably be along the road. And if there's any disturbance that we would cause, to improve the site access, would be, resolved and fixed and repaired to the extent that it's to its current function.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And I know at the first hearing a few years ago, there was a lot of discussion with some of the neighbors, including, I think, the neighbor who abuts the access road. And I think all those issues were addressed in the plan, but I'm curious if you've had any more recent communication from or with any of the abutters or neighbors around there?
No, I have not.
Okay.
I have not, no. I know that obviously they were made aware, and it is a public hearing, but I personally haven't done anything else. But to that point, we do have that. I know that stone wall down here at 115 Plain Street was a large concern, and we did but we realigned the access road to make sure that we avoid that. And then one of the conditions that you guys placed on the last approval was, if there's any issue with that wall, we'd have to repair it as well, which
Right.
makes perfect sense.
Any other questions from the planning board? Jeff?
Yeah, sorry, just to go back to the landscaping plan, I think the applicant did a good job explaining it, but can you just describe what the plantings are on center? So I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page, that I think sometimes the illustration can look a little different than what actually gets laid out on the site when they actually go in. So we talked about like I forget the name now. The spruce, was it the spruce? I can't see the top of the list.
Yeah, sorry. Let me. It is
the balsam fir.
The balsam fir.
And so, does it show or talk about how far apart they are on center when they're planted?
Yeah. So I mean, I can off the top of my head, I would have to look into that as far as just the spacing. I think that it was our intent at this stage was to demonstrate and show kind of where approximately the tree locations would be, and then as the site plans got refined over the engineering process before, when we have to go for building permits, we'd have that final planting plan included there. With obviously it needs to be in compliance with all of the site plan review approvals that we're asking for here. But I think that was, to me, that would be the easiest way to go about it.
Okay, I just want, maybe it's something we can put on hold, but I think there may be a difference between what you see on the site plan and then what actually gets planted. That was my most recent experience with some of the plantings on the other solar project that we just completed. Was if you take even an arborvitae or something that's 4 to 6 feet tall at planting, then they're placed 10 foot on center, it will take a couple years to actually fill that gap between 10 foot on center. So I just want to hone in on this a little bit more, because this is going to be visible from the field. And, there will be, we just want to clarify how, I guess that's my question of clarity is, if we are going to continue this, if you can get some clarity on what would be the spacing for the plants, so that we all have the same understanding when they get put in. If they're 10 foot on center, there's going to be a substantial gap for some period of time while they grow in. So that would just be for clarity purposes.
Yeah, I don't think there should be any issue there. I know something else that we've done in other communities is basically tell the planning department and the planning board that once the project is installed, you guys would be able to go and inspect all the vegetative buffer to make sure that it's in compliance there. So that could be another way to remedy this. But yeah, I can dig into the spacing on the landscaping plan. So basically just the landscaping plan in more detail with the distance on center and all the spacing attributes.
Okay.
Any other questions from planning board members? Okay. Is there anybody here from the public who has any comments or questions? If you can raise your hand, either click the button or if you're on a phone, do the *9 to raise your hand. All right, I don't see anyone right now. Ed, just so you know, one of the things we've been doing with these remote hearings for things like this is even if we were able to get everything wrapped up today, we wouldn't take a vote. And then it gives us a period of time when the public can submit comments or questions in writing before the next meeting, which we would obviously share with you. But because we can't all gather in one place, that sort of has been one of our workarounds. So I think we'll do that tonight anyway. But it looks like there's no one here right now, which I will use to segue in. You know, one of the things we dealt with a lot last time and on all these is the decommissioning plan. So I'm curious if there's been any update to the decommissioning plan, and if so, how that's changed.
We kept the same plan. I mean, all of the equipment and everything was the same. So, you know, so you install the same, you would have to decommission, remove the same.
Okay. And Jeff, have we sent that to the city engineer for review this time?
The application was transmitted to the city engineer, but I have not received any comments on it.
Okay. Can we ask specifically for him to take a look at that? Because I think that's really helpful, and I would rather get his input too.
Yes, and I would say that for the applicant's benefit, just to understand that you know, this board and probably other boards around in Massachusetts since the SMART program took effect, there have been some questions about the salvage value. So I will say that I do not recall from my initial review what the numbers are. So maybe Ed could clarify what the proposed decommissioning number is. But we have had two opinions now from our city attorney that, based on questions of the salvage value, you know, there's a large number of solar projects coming online in like really close proximity to each other. And due to the uncertainty about the salvage value in 20 or 30 years, if they all age at the same rate, there was a lot of questions about the salvage value. And so that was used as our position to ask for the 120% of the estimate, which is allowed in the ordinance. So Ed, can you take a swing through summarizing what the decommissioning cost is and how it relates to the ordinance?
Yeah, I believe that it was specified in the decision that it was a condition that we would hold the $200,000 in for a decommissioning bond.
And do you have a recollection of whether that exceeded the estimate? Is that how that number, because that number seems higher than, we've seen a couple of these projects and they're coming in around, you know, between 80,000, 90, 100,000 for the estimate. And then we're looking to get 120% of that cost. Do you have the estimate number handy?
I could dig it up and send it over.
Okay.
Jeff, I'm almost positive that we did the 120%.
I think we did too. But yeah, I can double check and send over the estimate.
I can't recall a solar project where we haven't done that.
Okay.
Agreed. It shouldn't be a problem. They've got 8.7 in cash.
All right. Are there any other questions, or can I move on to this Piscomic Trust issue?
Before you,
yes, Jeff.
Oh, sorry. I know I'm not the planning board, but before you move on to the Piscomic Trust, so I apologize to the applicant because I don't know that we had a specific discussion of this, but, you know, I believe that there may be a section of the ordinance that we've evolved our interpretation of since the 2017 decision, and it has to do with the north property line, and I am having a hard time kind of articulating the question and looking for the section at the same time, but it basically says there's a no disturb area, and you know, it basically says that no portion of the solar array shall be placed within that setback. And in our previous decisions, we've looked at the road, fencing, and other things to constitute part of the solar project. So the good news overall is that there's a waiver provision. So there is an opportunity for the planning board to specifically waive that. And we've used that for some of the discussion around, so I'm sure the screening is helpful, but you know, to provide a benefit to the city, or some value added of getting that waiver. And so now I will look for the section.
Yeah, so just to touch on that real quick,
Yep.
we did, as we just went over with the landscaping plan, we did place, you know, the vegetation along the back parcel line there. So I would imagine that would probably violate any setback rule that you have with regards to that. But looking, you know, at the site plan itself, we did provide, and I don't know what setbacks, what your setback is, but I know that there aren't any physical panels themselves placed within 50 feet of that rear property line. There is the road and the fence, so extending from the back, I guess the northernmost extent of the line of panels. There would be so from there'd be, you know, the access road, and then on the north side of the access road, so on the side towards the border, with the fence would be there. And just, you know, eyeballing it from the plans, it looks like we've probably got about 25, 30 feet between the property line and where the fence would start. Obviously the trees would be further north than the fence line.
That would violate the do not disturb zone.
What was the distance of the do not disturb zone?
It's 50 feet.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Is that area along the north property line, does it contain trees and vegetation now? Do you have it? That was the project, one of our previous projects that required an access road within that 50 feet. And the interpretation was that, you know, it's section 7.3.5.5, which is a natural buffer of 50 feet that's undisturbed. And so in that other project in particular, there were a substantial amount of trees that had to be removed to get in that 50 foot. And so we did interpret it that, you know, any part of the solar array, it did include the road or fencing. You know, there is willingness, I'm sure, for discussion of allowing the waiver. And there's just a criteria in here that the permit granting authority may reduce the minimum setback distance as appropriate based on site-specific considerations. And then there's an or, so then it says, or written consent of the affected abutters if the project satisfies all other criteria for the permit granting authority. So I don't know if that came up in your last discussions. I did not review the minutes from 2017, but I just wanted to put it on the table for the board's consideration as you make findings that this is something. I don't know that I addressed this with Mr. Switzer, but I guess the main question is there a lot of vegetation along the north property line at this point?
There's none. All of the vegetation that would be there permanently would be vegetation that we've planted to the benefit of those future residents.
Right. Okay.
Pascomic letter?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know if there's anyone here from Pascomic to talk, but I will read the letter into the record just to be safe. And if someone else wants to comment on it, they can. So this was a letter that was received July 2nd from the Pascomic Conservation Trust. Dear members of the Planning Board, I'm writing on behalf of the Board of Directors of Pascomic Conservation Trust, owners of the White Brook Plains Conservation Area South. This 4.35 acre portion of the conservation land in the Crown Meadow subdivision lies on the western and northern borders of parcel 171-107, site of the proposed Forefront Power project currently under your review. Because of its situation at the center of several protected parcels, Whitebrook Plains Conservation Area, the Chickwin APR, and the city's Justina Conservation Area, the tract slated for the PV development is of considerable interest to Piscomic. We approached the landowner several times since 2006 proposing that it be protected. Those conversations did not bear fruit. When this project was first proposed in 2017, we took note that the projected development footprint is confined to the area east of Whitebrook, with the remainder landlocked by our conservation area and built-up house lots along Plain Street. This, in combination with the presence of wetland, effectively renders that portion undevelopable for any purpose. In addition, the proposed footprint leaves a substantial buffer corridor along the southern edge of the tract. Piscomic owns a trail easement, as yet undeveloped, over the Chickwin APR, permitting construction of a trail along its southern border. This would join with a major trail being considered by the city and Piscomic, which would run along another easement route to connect Justina Conservation Area to city conservation land to the north and to the new school. The city's trail project may include a small parking area off Plain Street. Given these circumstances, we suggest to the planning board, the landowner, and the applicant that the western section of the project site be protected with provision for public access, including a trail easement through the southern portion to reach Justina Conservation Area. The attached sketch map shows a possible configuration for the above, with a boundary lying outside the project's 50-foot setback line. Public access in either the protected area or through the southern buffer would neither interfere with nor entail a safety risk from the project facilities. This protection and access could be implemented with no alteration of the current site plan and no detriment to any of the parties, but with considerable benefit to the public interest through expansion of the South Conservation Area, provision for additional households to access the proposed north-south trail and Justina Conservation Area, and finally, potential restoration and protection of native vegetation along Whitebrook by Piscomic and its partners. We are eager to engage in any necessary negotiation with the parties to explore what form that protection and access could take in light of any current contractual obligations, the landowner's future interests, and security relative to the proposed facility on the actual project footprint. Thank you for consideration of this proposal. Sincerely, Garrett Stover, Volunteer Land Conservation Advisor on behalf of Piscomic Conservation Trust. So I guess, Ed, first of all, have you had a chance to look at this letter?
I have, yeah. And I mean, just my initial reaction is I actually really like this idea. My background is I'm a city planner myself, so this type of connectivity and this sort of these types of ideas is something that really hits home for me. So I think this looks very reasonable. I like that it runs kind of in between that berm and the property line, so it's, you know, there's it's a trail. Like, you want to keep that sort of wooded experience. So I think that works out really well as far as where it's placed. And I know that I did speak with the property owner himself, because Jeff had mentioned that this is a possible, is this being a possibility. And I know that he didn't have any issue with it when I had brought it to his attention a couple months ago. So yeah, I mean, I'd have to double check, obviously, just on any insurance or anything on that side. That's safety is obviously our number one concern, but just, you know, conceptually, I don't see it being a particularly big issue. I guess my question would be, do you see this being a very well-traveled path? Because obviously the more people that you introduce into the area, the higher likelihood of possible, you know, throwing rocks, things like that, damage that we wouldn't want to deal with. And you know, obviously if there's no trail versus a trail, it's encouraging versus, you know, not having anything there. And that would just be my only concern. But, you know, it's bordered on, you know, it looks like 60%, maybe not 60%, 50% by like public property already where people have access to. So I think, yeah, no, I'll be quiet. I think it's a good idea. I just got to check on the insurance.
Great. Jim, you got a question?
Yeah, I think you're asking a wonderful question, Mr. Switzer, about, you know, what kind of traffic can you expect? And I just want to ask a few questions to help me frame that. Your site is fenced in, is that correct?
It will be, yes.
And we're talking about chain link?
Yes.
So in terms of traffic and such, your panels would be on one side of a secure fence and whatever this is would be on the other side. So additionally, I'm kind of curious about, and we've been through this process once before, but I just want to talk about it with all of us as a group, about exactly what the expectation here is. For me, this is exactly the kind of thing that gives back to the community that is essential to finding value for the city and granting a waiver, and really help move me, in that regard, because this is clearly something that's beneficial to the city at large. I want to see it happen. But what exactly is it? Is it a condition that we put in? Do you have to go get a document signed by the owner of the property? How is this navigated? Jeff, do you recall from the last one that we did how we ended that? Was it a letter from the owner of the property?
The last one was, I guess I would describe it as it was a little bit more involved on behalf of the applicant and the property owner.
There was a road involved, as I recall.
Well, the concept overall was still the same, as in it was an easement. So it just seemed like there was a lot more reluctance for that property owner to engage in the discussion of an easement. So the planning board worked really hard, I think, to get that agreement before the board voted. I think here there may be some opportunity to maybe make it a condition of the approval, but I still think we have to get to some level of detail, and I think that's what you're asking about. Pascomic mentions really two things here, and on the map that I'm sharing is like the blue line that runs horizontal across. That's one of their requests. Actually, they probably have three. The blue line shows a potential trail access area. All the way to the page left would be desire to set aside that as protected open space. And then the third part, which is really where the city, like from my perspective, and I appreciated Ed's comments, from a planning perspective, we're looking at the area of the solar project that's just adjacent to where it says Gustina Conservation. So the problem that we see, the biggest problem that we see is from Plain Street, you can see the beige color comes in, and that's the easement that we currently have. But then it enters directly into the private parcel. For us, that's the most important easement that we could get, is the ability to just continue over the road that they're going to build and get to the parcel that's the Chickawan APR. And this is where we've really found the collaboration with solar, is that they're going to be building this access road and they maintain it. And it's a perfect opportunity for the public to be able to cross over that road. It really serves
I want to make sure I understand that. Are you talking about the eastern edge, right up against the Gustina Conservation Area? Okay. Yep.
And if you could imagine their access road runs right on their parcel, but next to where it says Gustina. And that's the most desirable thing for us, is to ensure that we could have access over that, because otherwise we would be forced to clear significant trees on the Gustina parcel to get some kind of trail or road access there. This yellow line really demarks like a really clear boundary of vegetation. So in my discussions with Ed early on, and I articulated that's the other thing that's, I would say, is significantly different now than in 2017, is that we've advanced this concept of a trail much farther. So I think for the board's purposes, that is one thing that you look at when a permit actually expires. It gives the planning board the authority to assess what else has changed in the vicinity. And I think aside from the idea of the trail planning, I don't think a lot has changed, but the goals of the city have become more clear. And then I think if I were to weight these, I would put a higher weight on the access strip going straight in. And if there was any willingness for the solar company to give an area for parking where they are, like, so for example, on the plan that Ed had shared before, the laydown area, you know, that's an area that if there was any way that the solar company could add some additional gravel to create an area for 4 parking spaces or something like that, and that would be a win-win for I think Pascomic, the city, and the solar company.
How do you feel about that, Ed?
So like I said, I fundamentally agree with the approach here. I think it's a really good idea. I don't, you know, again, checking with, you know, insurance and making sure that everything is okay from that regard is one thing, but, you know, just sort of fundamentally, I think it's a really great idea. I think if there's even, and Jeff and I talked about this. Oh man, it's like that was yesterday. It feels a lot longer, but still in the same apartment. We haven't moved very much. It just feels long. But no, we had talked about it, and I think there could potentially even be a way to repurpose like the fire department's turnaround or something like that, where it's. I'm hoping that the fire, you know, the emergency turnaround isn't used particularly often. So if it can be used for regular car parking more frequently, I think that's probably a better use of that gravel. So I think that there's ways that we think that we can integrate this into what we've got here that would be minimally disruptive to our current site plan, but I think provide a lot of benefit to the city here.
Jesse, my question still stands as to how we bring this over the finish line. What is our expectation? You know.
Yeah. So I was going to say, Jim, I think that because we have this has to get continued to August. Is that right, Jeff?
We're going to go to August 4th. Yeah.
So I think we have a fair amount of time here, and I think that there should be time. Ed, correct me if I'm wrong, for you to sort of do your own due diligence and also circle back with Jeff and maybe Pascomic and see what kind of proposal you and the landowner and whoever else is involved are comfortable with, so that we can see that. I think that Jeff's right. Last time we did this, we felt the need to basically have a legal easement agreement signed and recorded before we approved anything. Mm-hmm. I'm far more comfortable in this case, you know, assuming we get a similarly positive response next month, with making it a condition before, you know, it goes live or something like that, you know, that there's somewhere down the road that just has to get, you know, dot I's and cross T's, but I don't think we need to make that all done before we can give approval. So I think, Ed, does that make sense to you?
Yeah, and Jeff had done a great job when I think we kicked off this conversation, back in November, sharing some of the previous easement language that you guys had approved, and I shared that with the landowner. And there no questions or anything like that. We had our own counsel and review it as well. So I think that, you know, from just a pure documentation, I think that all those sort of parts are in place. It's just timing and you know, I would imagine that we'll probably have to have someone go out and do a survey of the easement, things like that. I think that those things, and I mean, we would prefer if we have to go out and do our Alta surveys or anything like that, just do all that work at the same time, so we only have to send one surveyor out rather than have them make 2 trips.
Right.
So yeah, I think that, you know, like I said, I think that all the ingredients have been purchased, but, you know, we just need to put it together. And I think we all kind of fundamentally agree on the format you take and just sort of the approach here. One thing and not to that came up was the protected open space on the western part of the parcel, and I just was wondering if I could get a little bit more clarity on that, just because it sounds like it would just be it would be restricted from any future development. Would that be in perpetuity? Would that be for the duration of the site lease? Would he see any tax benefit or anything like that there? Just sort of what's the mechanism behind that protected area?
Jeff, maybe the details of that, sort of what the options are for the city. Jeff, do you have any idea? I know there's a bunch of different ways we've done this in the past, or people have done it. I think most of that is sort of unbuildable wetland anyway, so I'm not sure what the huge issue is there, but Jeff, what do you think for ideas for that?
Yeah, like I said, I mean, if Pascomic were here, I think that they could formulate a slightly better argument for why it's important to protect it. I do agree that it's generally a resource area that we don't think would be developed in the future. I don't really know if there's a way to put a dollar value to that part of the land. The element of that I think may be a little bit trickier, and this can be something I can try to get a little more information from Pascomic on as we wait a couple weeks, would be whether the expectation would be that there's a conservation restriction of some sort, or some, you know, the permanent, to make it permanent, which is what I did read Pascomic's letter to kind of request the permanent protection of that. But there's a mechanism in place, which from my, I would say, relatively limited experience would be, you know, a conservation restriction. So the property owner would have to enter into a restriction with some entity to maintain the restriction in perpetuity. So there's some parts to that request that I personally have not, you know, vetted, and I would put it in a slightly different bucket than the easements. So, you know, when we look at easement language, I do know, Ed, that when we did the easements for the other project, the owner did have concerns about insurance and liability. Mm-hmm. And through the granting of the easement, they are relieving, the property owner is relieved of all responsibility if someone were to twist an ankle, you know, out there. You know, by granting the easement to the city has accepted that responsibility, just like any other trail or public park or something like that. So we can work on, I can get you there. There's a citation of a MGL that relieves you of that, but I don't have it off the top of my head, but that can be relieved. Okay. So if that's information for your property owner, that might be helpful. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I don't know. I don't know about the conservation parcel.
I think, Ed, I think there's several different ways it could go, and it may be worth it. That may be something that you and Jeff and Pascomic can sort of circle around with. I mean, there may be options that are more tax advantageous for you or the landowner, sure, or not, but I certainly couldn't opine on that, but I do think there's a bunch of different ways that could be done.
Yeah, and I think I probably misspoke when I said like a tax break or something like that, and I should have said, I agree with you that it is primarily an undevelopable wetland, but I don't think the property owner is like, okay, so I can't develop it, but now I have to register and send some paperwork in every year or do something like that. So just something that is low touch and, you know, not requires any sort of additional work on his side is I think the best outcome there.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So
that would be great if you and Jeff can circle on that stuff before the next hearing and give us sort of a proposal for what would work in August. That would be awesome.
Works for me.
And then I think the other issue we talked about checking in on is sort of some more detail on the decommissioning plan, and we're going to have the DPW or the engineer look at that. And then I think there was a little more detail you were going to give us on that landscaping plan. Was there anything else, board members, that we were talking about? And we'll also, of course, give 4 weeks for any abutters or other members of the public who want to make comments. They can, of course, email that to Jeff. If anybody's watching this on YouTube in the future, they can send an email and we'll address that or raise it at that.
When do you want to continue this to?
I had one more question before we depart. I think that was a great summary. Thank you. I appreciate that. There was one other question about the fence. So we did hear the discussion of the fence being chain link, and that's been generally acceptable by the board in the two, grand old number of 2 solar projects so far. But I did want to make sure that we all saw, and it's different in that the detail for the fence does show that there's barbed wire on the top, and so I don't know what the board's discussion was in 2017, but that. I wanted to ask a question about whether there might be some consideration to any kind of alternative fence arrangement that might not have the barbed wire component. It's just that the past 2 projects that we've seen did not need to incorporate chain link, and it creates a different, visual. I know that there's going to be screening. But in the time that there is no screening, or the part of the fence that's not screened, Ed, I don't know maybe the question is in your, experience with arrays in other places, especially I guess in Massachusetts, have you guys considered any fence alternatives that don't have barbed wire on top?
So now you want everyone walking back there, and I can't have my barbed wire to deter them from causing a ruckus. So, no, I mean it's the barbed wire on top of the 8-foot fence has just been our standard nationwide. We do it in Massachusetts, in Illinois, everywhere that we've got projects. We pretty much install the same fence. So I mean, I've never ever done it differently. I'm sure it has been done. I know that we prefer it, just for added security. I don't think we've ever installed any video cameras or any surveillance like that. That's just sort of something that's kind of a low cost but effective deterrent from keeping people from where they shouldn't be for their own safety.
So that's fine. I just wanted to have that discussion. I mean, in between this meeting now and a meeting on August 4th, I mean, I haven't heard really no objections from the planning board. A couple items of clarity. I definitely, with the chair's permission, I mean, I can draft up, I would say maybe 80 or 90% of a decision. I think there's a little bit that hinges on the owner's ability to help us fulfill the goals of the city with access, but I guess I'm just looking for the board's confirmation that that's acceptable to you. Then I think we can kind of keep moving on forward on preparation of a potential decision for August.
I think that's a perfect plan. I think especially since we're pushing this out for 4 weeks, we might as well come back hopefully with a decision that we can read and fill in the blanks, and if not vote, be hopefully voting. Okay, any other issues, comments, questions from the planning board? I'll give one more chance for anybody in the public. Is there anybody else that's logged on that would like to ask a question, make a comment? You can either virtually raise your hand or even just unmute yourself and give a shout. All right, seeing nothing, I will invite everyone to make comments or questions in the 4-week interim, and we'll address those at the August 4th meeting. And now I will take a motion to continue.
A motion to continue the Forefront LLC special permit to August 4th at 6 p.m.
Seconded.
All right, and now we will do our roll call vote. All those in favor of continuing to August 4th. Jesse Belcher-Timmy, aye. Chris Cockshaw.
Aye.
Austin Sanders.
Aye.
Brenda Salyer.
Aye.
Harry Schuman. You're muted, Harry, but I saw you say yes. Unmute yourself.
I got you unmuted, Harry.
Aye.
Thank you. James Zarvis.
Aye.
All right, excellent. So Ed, thank you very much for your information, and we'll see you on August 4th.
Sure, this was great. I appreciate everyone's time this evening, and I'll see you in a month. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
All right, and now before we move on to the next matter, I am going to recuse myself, and Mr. Zarvis will take over with his own capable hands, and best of luck to everybody. Have a good night, folks.
Thanks, Jesse. See you next week.
Night.
All right, folks, let's keep moving forward. We have a special permit coming up for a wholesale propane storage and propane and oil distribution center. Is there anyone here to speak to that from HRDD 56 LLC?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Rob Levesque from R. Levesque Associates. How are you?
Hello.
Also with me this evening is Jeff Hunter. He's the owner of Pioneer Valley Propane and Oil Storage. Jody Emiden is on with us as well. Jody is an expert related to the fire permitting process, so we've been working with the fire department on that. If it pleases the board, what I'd like to do is share my screen, just briefly show you what our overall plan is, and then we can get into the details, and Jody can certainly speak to some of the logistics and mechanical components of what we're trying to do.
Sounds good.
Great, thank you. And Jeff, I love your hair.
I love the pictures you've got in the background. You've got a happy family.
I just made you co-host.
Okay, thanks guys. So can everyone see my screen? Okay, great. So what we're looking at is on the upper right-hand side of my screen. If you can see my cursor, this is O'Neill Street. There's an existing metal building that houses the Strong bus company. This is the building here. There's also another little office building. So the light half-toned lines in writing on my plan, those are the existing conditions, so to speak. We're really not planning a lot of change to the site. So really what we're looking to do is reuse the existing property. It's almost ideal for Mr. Hunter. He had looked at a property in Westfield. He's very happy to have found this property, and this really works almost ideally for him. So as you can imagine, he has a propane fleet and he has an oil fleet, some of which are located in other locations, but would like the ability as necessary to be able to house them in this particular location. So the programming of this site would consist of reusing the existing building, which is a bus garage now. This would be a garage for the use only of maintaining the fleet, Mr. Hunter's fleet, no other outside vehicles or anything like that. He anticipates having approximately 3 office staff in the little office building that they have adjacent to the overall building. Within the metal building, there'd probably be 1, maybe 2 mechanics, but most likely 1 at this point. What we've also looked at doing is enclosing the site for security purposes. Obviously, people could drive in during the day, but we would have the ability with a 6-foot chain link fence. We would basically cut off the back portion of the property here. And then over on this south side here, we would cut off, we'd have another 20-foot gate here and a 30-foot gate here. We're planning to reuse the existing curb cuts that exist now, and traffic can come and go in and out of these 2 gates. Back within the yard itself, we would have approximately 22 spaces for the oil fleet. And then we have approximately 10 spaces for the propane fleet, with a transport vehicle location. That's not something that's currently part of Mr. Hunter's operation, but in the future he anticipates the potential need for a transport vehicle, in which case he could store a little bit longer vehicle here. These spaces are 25 by 12, so a little bit oversized to accommodate the fleet vehicles. And then our normal spaces that we have for the office staff and other staff are right here. Right up in front, if you can see, we have a kind of more of a retail propane. It's a 1,000-gallon propane tank located up front here where people can come in. There's a man gate and somebody could come in and fill up their tank for their gas grill or something like that. And then the propane storage that we're proposing is in the back, kind of the south corner here. And there's 3 30,000-gallon propane tanks. And then the associated requirements for enclosure. Obviously, the fencing that we have throughout the site, kind of accommodates what's required for the safety purposes. I'll probably stop there, see if the board has any general programming questions, and then I would probably turn it over to Jody for any specifics on the propane and all of the details. I know that she has been communicating with the fire department, and I do see that I believe there's a representative from the fire department on, and we do appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, we have a ton of things we're going to have to go through. I'll start with a couple. Can you actually bring that map back and share? I think that's very handy for us to, so if you just keep sharing your screen, that's going to be awesome. Thank you. Tons of stuff to talk about here. I think I'll start with parking, if that's okay with the board. I'm seeing, is it 8 spots for your regular employees that are up near that little propane tank for, what is it, a retail propane tank? Is that what it is?
12. There's 12 spots there. That is correct. Yep.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then a tank. Oh, I see that they're up against the building on the lawn. And
Yep.
Is that 1 handicapped?
That is correct.
So it's 11 normal and 1 handicapped.
That is correct.
And then how many people work at the facility?
At the facility, they anticipate having 3 within the office and then 1 in the building. So the rest of them are fleet drivers.
Okay. This is industrial zoning, right?
That is correct.
Jeff, do you happen to have the use up and handy in terms of the parking requirement?
I would see if Mr. Lebec will go. Do you have a zoning chart that you would go through with the requirements, how it meets that?
I believe it's in my narrative here. Let me see if I can find it. Can we circle back to that and I can try to find that for you?
Yeah, no problem. We can absolutely come back to it.
Okay.
There's about 1 million questions. Now, I don't want to hog them all. So if some of you guys want some of these, you jump in. And lady, forgive me. What about lighting? I see that there's a wetland in the back, and we all care about the peepers. Can you tell me a little bit about the lighting on this facility?
Yeah, we're not proposing any new lighting, and most of the facility is not operated at night. Obviously, the owner and maybe a few staff would be there after business hours, but generally it's a daytime operation.
So what about existing lighting? What's there now?
There's existing lighting on the building, and then let me see if I can zoom in for you. Apologize, my PDF. I'm trying to figure out how to go. There we go. So there's wall packs on the building, but really not a lot of yard lighting, and I'll have to confirm. Really no yard lighting shown on my plan.
Okay, that's something I will want to know a little bit more about. It strikes me as a little odd that you've got these big trucks coming in and out and there's no lighting. Do they not operate at night at all?
Jeff, can you speak? Do you want to speak to that at all in terms of your hours of operation and what you typically have? And that's Jeff Hunter he's the owner. Unmute himself.
Hi. Again, hi, how are you?
Hi, Jeff. The question was related to the hours of operation and what you typically see, how late your fleet drivers are coming back to the office and your need for overhead lighting in the back.
The hours of operation, I try to get them off the road before dark. So I want everybody back in my yard, usually around like 5 o'clock. Guys are coming back between 3 and 5. Sometimes busier days, it gets colder, we got to stay out. I know for lighting, if I went and looked at the site, as you pull into the access road, on the corner where the trucks are parked, there is a telephone pole with lights on it, floodlights. And there's also...
Do you have that on the map?
I believe I do. I don't know if I got to find it.
All right, sorry, please continue.
So there's lighting on that corner, and I believe the far corner where the propane tanks are located.
Those are proposed, right? Those aren't there at this point?
No, they're not there.
Okay.
There is lighting on the parking lot.
So you have 3 regular employees in the office, if I heard correctly, that are sort of managing this fleet, and you've got people coming in and out, and you try to close it by dark. Are you Monday to Friday?
We're Monday to Friday. I try not to work weekends because the way I look at it, they work so hard during the week that I need to give them their weekends off so they're fresh for me on Monday.
And what time do you open?
I'm usually at the office between 4:30 and 5, but the office hours, I have girls staggered. So when it's winter, I'll have a girl come in start at 6:30, and she'll go to 2:30, and then I'll have another girl come 8 to 4, and then if it's busy, she'll stay until 5.
Okay. So some of that lighting there is curious to me. I think that's something we'll need to talk about more. One other thing that I noted was because it's all wetland buffer in the back, you're dealing with a lot of combustible materials, and not just that, but waste materials inside that warehouse where you're planning to have a mechanics garage to service your fleet. What are you doing with waste oil and all the waste materials that get generated?
There is a waste oil burner there that we can use for heat. And if we have to, we'll dispose of it properly through the right chains.
Is this all impermeable surface? Is this all asphalt?
It's all existing asphalt. There's no new impervious surface. And we have filed an RDA with the Conservation Commission. So there is, just as we're talking about the wetland, we'll zoom out a little bit here, but there's a bordering vegetated wetland with an intermittent stream back behind the property. This is the 100-foot buffer zone right here.
Yep.
But there's no change to the existing impervious surface. That's already there, already exists. We're just restriping, essentially storing the trucks there. There is a chain link fence to prevent any encroachment into that area. And then this chain link fence would continue along the front here.
How are you getting rid of trash and refuse? You have a bin?
Private.
Yeah, we'll have a dumpster.
Where?
In the backyard, this is all chain link here. So this would all be the backyard. There'd be storage vehicles, etc. Could be located, pretty much anywhere. If you want an enclosure, we could certainly dictate that area.
What kind of waste are you generating? I mean, you only have 3 staff.
No, it's just paper products, whatever they have, garbage. Minimal.
Okay.
What about snow removal? Where are you going to remove and place the snow?
So obviously major events, if it gets a little bit tight right now. So Jeff, can you guys clarify kind of your status and your other locations? So right now, my understanding is you have other locations. This is kind of showing a build out if you were to, have all of your fleet here. Is that generally correct?
That is correct. That is if something ever happened and I had to pull my Berkshire County fleet, my fleet that I have in Palmer, all to one area, we could come back to this area and conduct business here. But we're running, 12, 13 oil trucks in our Westfield location, and then the other trucks are in Palmer, in Berkshire County. I just wanted to have a home base, so if anything ever happened, we could come back and I'm protected. We can stay there.
Back to the snow storage question, a logical answer would be outside the fence area here. We'd have to, ideally, we wouldn't be storing, we're not going to want to store anything inside the gates really here, because obviously if, for, fire department getting in and out of here, we want to make sure this is all accessible. So if there would be any on-site stockpiling of material, of snow, it would really need to be outside the gate. That said, my hunch is that, and Jeff can speak to this, but my hunch is that in major storm events, they would need to truck it off site and make sure that the site is clear and functioning.
Right. That's where we hire somebody to come in and take it out.
I definitely think I would like to see, what your plan is, but specifically map it out for both the trash and the snow storage. It's interesting to me that propane tank that's near the parking is so close. Isn't that in any way a risk to have it near parked vehicles like that? Not the ones down below, but the one up above, near that one.
No. Do you want to?
I don't know much about it, so I'm really genuinely asking.
It's protected by bollards. It's completely crash protected, so it can't be struck, and it is for security purposes inside the fence. It's not something that's for the general public.
I note that you pointed out that the 100-foot wetland buffer ran through the parking spots that you're going to use for some of the fleet there. And that's all pre-existing. Jeff, do you have any comment on the positioning of that?
That was directed at which Jeff was that directed at?
That's you. Sorry, Jeff Bagg. My bad.
Okay.
I'll be more specific in the future.
That's okay.
Mr. Hunter,
Can you reiterate what your question was?
The 100-foot wetland buffer looks to be running through the paved parking lot.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, the 100, generally, I don't know really the history of when the existing site improvements were done, but I guess just for reference, areas within 100 feet are regulated, but you could build within 100 feet. So it is conceivable that they got permission at some point to build. Usually there's a 25-foot no disturb area, so it looks like it might fall without that. So I think, as Mr. Levesque said, that they did submit a request for determination of applicability. So that's when the Conservation Commission looks at this and determines whether, I guess I would say the addition of the chain link fence in the back, whether that would be something that they would want to regulate further. It looks like the larger propane tanks are outside of the Conservation Commission's jurisdiction, right? So that would be what we have the experts there for, to talk about if there are any special considerations for that area. Rob, do you know when you're scheduled with the Conservation Commission for the RDA?
I don't. I know it's been submitted. I believe it's probably at least a week and a half, 2 weeks out. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I have a question about that same area. I just want to be clear. So you have the propane tanks in the other side, but that area is for oil distribution, oil as opposed to propane?
Correct.
So tell me, what is the containment tub for oil trucks there? What is that?
So in the event that, obviously anytime that we have, you're dealing with oil, you want to make sure that you have the ability to contain a spill. So there's basically, it's like a curbed area that in the event that there is a spill, it can be contained and cleaned up properly.
How many oil trucks, are you keeping them there as sort of a secondary storage? Are they going to be coming and going? What are your thoughts about that?
They're going to be coming and going, and they won't all be stored there. As Mr. Hunter had mentioned, there's a couple different locations that he has, one in Palmer and one in the Berkshires. Mm-hmm. But Jeff, do you want to speak a little bit more detail?
Just what I iterated before about that we have the other locations, and that the trucks that'll be there will be, I'll have a couple trucks that we have sitting there just in case, one breaks down, we can hop in another truck and make sure we can still deliver. But mostly all the trucks that we have are being used, and I need them to make money for me. So they're not making money sitting.
Okay, thank you.
And those are all, Jeff, could you speak to a little bit, just if I could, through the chair, if you could speak to a little bit to the requirements for inspection and just kind of some of the details of what you have to go through to kind of, express some, or to hopefully provide some comfort as to, the possibility of a leak and how that typically works.
Well, first I'll just start with the fire marshal stickers. Our tanks have to be inspected every 2 years by the fire department, the local fire department. And what they do is they'll go through my whole truck. They'll check everything, make sure that, there's no leaks. They check the hoses, the manholes on top to make sure that everything's tight, nothing's loose. And that comes up every 2 years. And actually this year, it's going to be this August that we have to do that again. And also DOT, our drivers are trained to look for anything, any kind of leaks. We don't want any spills, anything happening. But that's what we do. Our drivers are looking for anything that, could possibly, if they see something, that we can address and fix right away.
Thanks, Jeff. If I could,
are these tanks new tanks, brand new, that you're putting in? Modern technology? Can you tell us about the tanks themselves?
The propane tanks?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they are brand new tanks, and we will be using the latest code requirements for all of the valving, piping, and design.
Okay. I see some vegetative. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say it's not only reviewed and approved by your local fire department, but the state fire marshal's office goes over things very thoroughly.
Good. I see some vegetative buffer, I think, at the bottom, if you could scroll down on your southern border there. That's all pre-existing trees between you and the next lot. What is the next lot next to you there?
That's right here. This is the Walden Corporation.
Okay.
If I could just real quick, just to clarify, related to the buffer and kind of what's going on this.
Sure, yeah.
So just to clarify, I'm going to try to draw. Let's see how this goes here. Okay. So this, where I just marked.
I'm sorry.
All right. So this right here is an existing fence. If you can, I'm not doing a very good job of it, but you can see the There's existing fence there. This is the only proposed new fence. This is the proposed fence here. And then the edge of pavement that exists, again, is this half-tone line. I'm really having trouble drawing a straight line here, but so there's no, no proposed encroachment there. And then the other thing that is important to note is the way that the site is graded. If you see this contour right here, 150 contour, and then you'll see that right around where this catch basin is, it's approximately 140. To see what the rim is, but what's happening is this water, any surface water or any spills or anything, obviously would run this way. We're containing this area with a containment tub so that that doesn't happen. But as far as stormwater or any runoff or any of those specific concerns towards the bordering vegetated wetland, that's not the way the water's going. It's actually sheet flowing, back towards the catch basin, and it actually ties out into O'Neill Street and then kind of down this way. So just a clarification.
Great. So I was talking about the trees on the southern border. They're just pre-existing.
Correct. Yep, down here. Yep.
Okay. Where does that catch basin you just showed me, where does that drain to? Where's that going to? I see a line, but that's just sort of the notes where it says existing catch basin rim 147.52. Is this? I see. There you go.
And then continues down and so on.
Public. Okay.
That's the same.
All right.
Disregard the last one.
So I definitely, the snow removal, the trash, having no lighting at all. Like I like to keep downward facing lighting that doesn't go into the wetland, but no lighting is a bit of a concern to me. Does anyone else on the planning board have any questions at this point? Jeff,
I do.
Bag? Oh, I'm sorry. I saw Jeff's hand and not yours, Chris. I'll go Jeff first.
I can defer if other people have questions. I have a couple kind of follow-up questions.
Well, my only question was the fact that the lighting was, there is new proposed lighting, so I didn't know if we really needed to look at a lighting plan to make sure there is no spillover. So we get, those plans that we normally have with the little foot candles on them.
Yeah, we can provide a photometric plan that obviously would be, we can light on the perimeter, shine it into the property and make sure it's downcast and dark sky compliant for sure.
Okay, thanks.
Anyone else on the planning board? Jeff, Bag?
Thanks. I think I just wanted to say a couple quick things. So we do have a fire department official on the call. So I think just going through the propane tank discussion briefly, I think will be important to just get the fire prevention officer, in line with the expert on the call. But the two clarification things are that the oil distribution element of this is the storage of trucks, right? So the trucks are not actually filling up with any oil on this site. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that. I think the trucks will fill with propane, which we'll shove over to the fire department in a second. Can someone, I will be honest and say that I didn't catch on the plan the containment tub. So that area is within the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission. So I do want to give them some leeway to look at that. But what is a containment tub? How does it establish itself on top of existing pavement? I did not catch that. I would have asked for a little information ahead of time, but I didn't. What does that do?
We're going to provide a mountable berm, essentially, so the vehicles will be able to drive over it. But the idea is that if, let's just say a hose, I don't know, and Jeff's going to laugh at me because I'm not in the oil business, but let's say a hose breaks. He's going to tell you that a hose can't break and there's safety stuff, but whatever. But say that happens. The idea would be that, it would be contained within this area. Obviously, if all 20, if you had all 22 fleet vehicles and tank ruptured on each, then it would be a different story. But this is basically, to handle. And I'll get you, like a gallonage or a volume that it can store to make sure that you're comfortable with that.
Yeah, I think the question would be: is there like a design standard that you're trying to achieve based on the number of vehicles or something?
Yeah, I think there definitely is a calculation that we would want to make sure we provide to you in the fire department. And actually, Jody might be able to speak to that, but if she can't, I know that we have a consultant that's dealing with that.
Not to the oil, only to
Okay.
the oil.
And I guess
We do have a consultant, a safety consultant on that as well. And
Okay.
we'll get that answer.
And just one more before we hand it over for the propane discussion, which is the catch basin. So I think it just came up, and I don't know. So this will be something we have to just clarify, or maybe if there's any standard that has to be met for protecting that catch basin. So there was bus vehicle storage there, but by changing the use in the industry or standards, is there anything that gets triggered for that catch basin to be protected with a grease trap, or I'm not exactly sure. Some parking lots have to be upgraded with certain things in the catch basin. Is there anything relevant to that?
Yeah, so I'd have to, I can definitely double check for you. And yes, there is. So standard would be to have a 4-foot sump with a hood. I can see what the depth of the sump is. It may show up on my drawings. If it doesn't, we'll get you some detail on that. And then there's typically, in a new system, we would be designing a new system with probably a storm scepter or something before it went out to the city street. Frankly, it probably wouldn't be going out to the city street because they're typically not, the new concept is, or the new idea is that we're handling our water on site. But with obviously an existing site where there's really no improvements proposed, I think the most logical and appropriate solution would be if there's not hoods on the catch basins to put hoods on. That'll prevent floatables and total suspended solids from kind of getting into the street, and will obviously help prevent if there was ever any spills, would help prevent migration, etc.
That's perfect. I think let's look into that as we go into the next meeting after this.
Okay.
Jeff, did you say we have a fire official here with us?
Yeah, Dan Constantine is the city's fire prevention officer.
Can we let Dan speak next?
Sure. Thank you. So I'm Dan. I'm your fire prevention officer. I went over the site with Jody, with the consultant, and I went over her plan, fire safety plan, everything. Very satisfied with everything. I think it's a very good site for this application. And Jody can speak to this more, but the safety devices on these tanks, especially under the newer codes, provide for very safe type situations. They have actually internal valves underneath in these tanks and stuff if there were some type of failure of it from the outside. Also, there's other safeties that are built in to the systems also. The other thing that we spoke about and that I am requiring is that there's going to be 2 monitors. What they are is they're big water guns that are going to be posed on the tanks, and they're going to be pre-piped out the side along that hedge line that buried plastics on that side towards the road, because of our staffing. If there was some type of fire back there, we'll be able to just hook up to, it's kind of like a standpipe, and we'll be able to feed from the road 2 monitors that'll help cool the tanks down. So I required that as an addition to it and such.
Okay, can you confirm that you guys are going to put that in? Is that Jody? I'm not sure.
Yes, we agreed to that. Also, we've also agreed to training too, site-specific training for the fire department and mutual aid. And there's also grants available at the Mass Fire Academy through the New England Propane Gas Association to send members of your fire department every year through a 3-day propane emergency training where they can learn about all different types of propane emergencies, mostly barbecue grills, sheared tanks at people's homes, truck rollovers, train derailments, and they get to work on propane fires in the fire facilities. So that's available every year, that grant, and we let members, we let departments send so many members, and then every 3 years you refresh. So you could send 2 each year until the department's all gone through.
Great. It's good for the community. Dan, and you too, Jody, we appreciate your work on this. And Dan, your work in the community, thank you very much. Does the planning board have any more questions about safety, security of the propane tanks? Jeff Bagg, did that answer your questions?
It did, and I just wanted to ask Dan Constantine a question. So the plan does show the water monitor location, which I think is great because I think that it's helpful to have it on the plan. Would it be helpful or necessary for the planning board to put a condition on about the site-specific training, or is that something that do you have that ability fully outside of this process to get that training?
Yes, yeah, we do. Yeah, we'll be able to do that, absolutely.
All right, I think that was my only last question. Is I don't think it's necessary as a condition that the site plan does show the water monitor location, so that's good for that component.
That's what I was going to ask. Yes, we don't need to condition the water monitor locations.
Yeah, and I will say, this property, if I had to pick any property in town, this is actually the perfect location for this type of operation. It really is a great location for it. Yeah.
Okay, great. Any other questions before I open it up to the public from the planning board? No? Then is there anyone from the public that would like to speak? I think that it was Jesse who said it was *6, I think, to mute your phone, and *9 if you're on a phone to raise your hand. Other than that, we'll try and, Jeff, if you could just give everyone a chance that's here.
Yeah, I mean, there's only one person, and the person doesn't need to say anything. But I see a person entitled Larry Webster has been on the call, so that's the only person who would constitute a member of the public, and I don't know if they wish to speak. Oh, they unmuted themselves.
Not actually a member of the public. I'm here taking Ryan Scritoral's place from Alfred Benish & Company. We're an additional consultant for Jeff Hunter.
Perfect.
Haven't heard anything that I need to address at this point.
Perfect. All right.
Welcome then. Okay, so it looks like there's no one from the public. So I think that what we need to do at this point, and if you were here following along from the first meeting, you probably heard our chair talk about how we have this process now because we're meeting online, where we tend to delay our votes one meeting to give people a chance to view these and come back. It's just part of our process. I think we need a little bit more info on some of the things we mentioned, the photometric plan, where the trash is going to go, the snow removal process. Jeff, can you think of anything else that you want to make sure that we have information for before our next meeting?
The things that you just listed are good. I think that the other benefit is that the applicant is going to go to the Conservation Commission before August 4th. And so I think just as we've always kind of incorporated their review into the planning board's decision-making process, we hope that the applicant can get through the Concom without too much, change, or if there is change, you can incorporate it into the plan before August 4th. So usually this overlapping works pretty well. So that would be the only other thing I can remember.
And now there was a tiny bit of lag there. Can you tell me again what the date of the Concom is? I just didn't quite catch that.
It's either going to be July 13th or July 27th.
And we're planning to meet again on the 4th for this, is that correct?
Correct.
And we'd mark it in our agenda at 6:15, even though it may actually come out later.
Yeah, I think the good news is that the first hearing got pretty well vetted. So you will have to hang out for a little while on August 4th, but I will commit to the same thing I committed for the other applicant, is I can draft up, and in this case, 95% of the decision, so that the activity of the board on the 4th is to review that, confirm findings, and then you would presumably get a vote on August 4th.
August 4th at 6:15, which is a hint. So I think at this point, I'm looking for Mr. Cockshaw.
Yeah, I move to continue this hearing to August 4th at 6:15 p.m.
Is there? Okay, great. There's a second. All right. Roll call vote. I note that Jesse tends to do it in alphabetical order, and he has more sophisticated systems than I. But I think Chris Cockshaw is next when he's not here. Aye or nay?
Aye.
And I think after that it's Brenda Salyer.
Aye.
Austin Sanders.
Aye.
Harry Schumann? You're still muted, Harry.
I had, okay, got him. Okay.
Say again, please, Harry.
Aye.
Thank you. And myself, aye. Okay. Thank you very much. We look forward to seeing you on the 4th, and sounds like a great project. Can't wait to...
Thank you for your time. And there was one other item just for your records, the containment tub, Jeff, if I know that.
Oh, good point. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Have a great night.
Be well.
Thank you.
Jeff, do we have any administrative items or announcements?
Nope. Nope.
Okay. Then
Motion to adjourn.
Perfect. Is there a second? Okay. I'm not fast enough to keep up with you all. I believe Chris Cockshaw first. Aye or nay?
Aye.
Brenda Sellier.
Aye.
Austin Sanders.
Aye.
And Harry Schumann.
Aye.
And myself, aye. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a lovely
Thank you,
evening, and we'll
everybody.
see you next week and every single week thereafter.
Thank you, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Bye-bye.